The Bonilla observation. This genuinely might be my favorite story in the entire video. In the year 1883, there was a Mexican astronomer named Jose Bonilla, and during a regular shift, Bonilla noticed something relatively obscure in his telescope. And for this reason, Bonilla took many photographs and wrote many notes of what he was seeing through his telescope. Interestingly, the photos that he took are regarded as some of the first images of unidentified flying objects, but trust me when I say this section has nothing to do with aliens. The objects that were seen through the telescope were basically impossible to decipher. Like, just look at this image on screen right now. Can you tell what that is? And for that reason, it was basically left to speculation. Bonilla ended up spending 2 days taking 447 ink photographs of the objects he was seeing through his telescope. And in the following years, Bonilla actually had his observations published in a French astronomy magazine. And French astronomers that observed Bonilla's photographs essentially said pretty confidently that there was either birds flying above the telescope or insects crawling on the telescope or something along that line. And roughly 40 years later, in 1920, Bonilla passed away. And while that is where Bonilla's story ends, that's not where the story of his observation ends. Because in October of 2011, 90 years after Bonilla had passed away, another Mexican astronomer decided to take a peek at some of Bonilla's photos. And the conclusion that he came to was not that he had seen geese or dust or bugs, but he actually had witnessed a comet exploding in space. And these modern-day Mexican astronomers were able to extrapolate that, assuming that Bonilla's timings and notes were correct when observing his UFO through his telescope, it's believed that the objects that he was witnessing were roughly 500 to 8,000 kilometers above Earth's surface, and roughly 70 meters to 800 meters in length. And because Bonilla observed 447 objects in roughly 3 hours, and over 3,200 objects in a 25-hour period, the modern-day astronomers estimated that the original comet before it exploded had a mass that was roughly equivalent to 8 times of Halley's Comet. But they not only estimated the size of the original comet, but also said that if any of the fragments of this broken comet had impacted with the Earth, it would have likely been the equivalent of 3,275 Tunguska events in 2 days. And if that means nothing to you, then just understand that the Tunguska event was a massive explosion roughly 3 to 50 megatons in size that took place in Russia in 1908. That singular explosion alone was significant. But what these astronomers are claiming is that if these comet fragments that flew extremely close to the Earth had impacted with the Earth, it would have resulted in an explosion over 100,000 megatons in size, causing something they called, quote, probably an extinction event. And while the thought of this story is absolutely terrifying, I also kind of love the implications. There was a Mexican astronomer who saw something interesting and spent 2 days studying it. He submits his notes and photos for publishing in France, and they basically go, oh, you saw a bird, you saw a bug. He then dies, and 100 years later, other Mexican astronomers are like, oh, no, that's not a bird or a bug. That was basically the closest we've ever come to asteroid-induced human annihilation in, well, a long time. The Lake Toba eruption.